Good morning again, everyone. It's Heather Chubb with the Chubb Law Firm. And this morning, I am delighted to have as my guest Megan Miller. She is a wealth advisor with Towerpoint Wealth. And we're going to be talking about retirement and money. So, Megan, welcome this morning. Thanks for getting up extra early and joining me. So glad to have you here.
Yeah, the other.
Um, so let's kind of jump right in, and we're going to hit the big question that a lot of people have, and I know it's a loaded question, but will I have enough to retire? What do we need to think about to answer that question even?
Yeah, and that is a big question and often a daunting one, understandably. And how we try and break it down is kind of trying to look at it as simply as possible in terms of what do I have for retirement versus what do I need for retirement, and how do those things line up, and are there any gaps there? So on the what do I have side of things, looking at your Social Security in retirement. What's that supposed to be? If you're not familiar, you can go check that out. The Social Security website has a place you can get an estimate of what your monthly benefit will be. So that's kind of in the have bucket. Do you have any other monthly pensions you expect to receive? Do we have any rental income? Kind of what's that monthly income that you already have that you expect to receive in retirement? And then on the, kind of bulk asset side of things, what's in my 401k? What investments do I have that I can draw on in retirement? Um, and then on the what do I need in retirement? And this will be a little bit personalized and custom, and you'll need to think about for you individually. Generally, kind of 80 to 90% of what you're earning in your working years is an appropriate number to shoot for monthly. And if you're going to be world travelers, obviously you probably want to bump that number up a little bit. Or if you're going to, stay home and play pickleball every week, maybe that number is a little bit lower for you. And look at, so what's my monthly coming in? What do I need in retirement? So if we need 10,000 and our Social Security and whatever is only about 5, working with a financial advisor to figure out, okay, what's a safe withdrawal rate monthly from my, investment pool that I have, and do those numbers match? Maybe I only have about 8,000 expected income over here, and I want or I need 10. So what do we need to do to, help fill that gap? Is it putting a little bit more into retirement? Is it adjusting what we think we might need down a little bit and being a little bit more conservative there? So that's kind of how we like to simply think about it. And obviously there are a lot of variables. It's not an easy thing, but trying to, look at it as simply as possible, and then working with clients on, that what do I need number in retirement, that monthly, really trying to nail that down a little bit better depending on what kind of retirement lifestyle you want to live in retirement.
Great. Okay. So our next giant topic, and I know this one is super concerning to a lot of people. When should I take Social Security? And especially in this kind of environment, maybe the answer is different than it was a little while ago. But rules of thumb for when you should take it?
Yeah, of course. And, like a lot of these questions, there's going to be different things that you want to think about for yourself personally. There's not a one size fits all or answer, but let's talk through some of the things that you might want to be thinking about as you're looking at Social Security. There's kind of the purely math answer of it of, if I wait till age 70, I can get the maximum amount. It increases 8% every year from full retirement age, which is typically late age 66 to 67. But that's not necessarily always the right decision for someone. And another common misconception is that when I retire and stop working, that's when I need to start drawing Social Security. And that's not always, or that's not the case. You can retire and wait a year, 2 years, 3 years, however long is appropriate and feels comfortable, and then start drawing Social Security. So in those interim years, you could be using, other income that you have or other investment assets. So again, the purely math side of things, assuming longevity is to take it at age 70, wait that time. But like I said, for a lot of people, maybe that doesn't feel good to draw from our investments for 5, 6 years if we retire on the earlier side. And often kind of what we find is a balance of, we definitely recommend clients wait till at least full retirement age. That's kind of anything less earlier than that, you're penalized a little bit more. So full retirement age, it changes based on when you're born, but generally around age 67. That's kind of when you get your best bang for the buck. And also there's some tax planning opportunities. In the year you retire, your taxable earned income is super low. So maybe it makes sense from that perspective to wait a year or two after full retirement age to get a little bit of step up in the monthly benefit you're getting to take advantage of some tax planning opportunities. But that really, love and hate thing depends, but it's a really unique, special consideration for everyone on what works best for you, financially, math-wise, and also the psychological component of that, of wanting to start drawing what's, your benefit and not wanting to put that off longer, and looking at kind of your resources and what you do have coming in versus what you need in retirement.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very appropriate "it depends" answer, and it's why we have professionals like you to help guide us. So, as we're getting closer to retirement, are there some investment strategies that we need to start shifting to or away from? Rules of thumb there?
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely want to match how your portfolio is invested based on, your unique stage in life, whether it's, you're super young, you have time to withstand, any risk or volatility. And I think, common knowledge is as we get older, want to kind of bring that volatility or risk down. Close to retirement, we don't want to see a huge drop in our portfolio. That doesn't feel good, or that's not super safe coming into retirement. But on the flip side of that, when we retire in our 60s, the portfolio still has to support us for another 25, 30 years. So it's important not to get too conservative too early. We still want, some pretty substantial growth component, stock component to our portfolios, while creating a little bit safer, less risky component to that portfolio. And kind of what that looks like is maybe, a little bit more on the bond or the income side of things in terms of the investment portfolio. That might mean having 1 or 2 years cash, really liquid in the account, just invested in maybe a money market or treasuries, things like that. So again, a little bit of nuance to this depending on the person and what they need and their risk tolerance and level and exactly where they're at, but still having a strong, at least 50% growth component in the stock market while making sure the rest of the portfolio is meeting our monthly income needs is important to consider.
Okay. All right. So it's a moving target always. You mentioned that there might be some tax planning opportunities as you're entering retirement. Can you give us some examples of that?
Yeah, there's a couple cool unique strategies just in that year of retirement. After retirement, our taxable income tends to be pretty low, sometimes super low. Maybe we can get us into the 12% bracket, and maybe we're up in the high 20s or low 30s in our overall tax bracket before. So what that allows for in those years is something called a Roth conversion. And if you're not familiar with that, what that is it allows to convert assets that we have in a regular 401k or a traditional IRA. Traditional or regular meaning that we're getting a tax deduction when we make those contributions. We haven't yet paid the tax on that money. And so typically you're going to pay the tax when you withdraw that money. What a Roth conversion is, if you're not familiar, a Roth account, you pay the tax up front before putting the money in, and then any growth and any withdrawals are completely tax-free. So that's really a cool, tax, I don't want to call it a loophole, but really cool tax benefit that any growth in a Roth is tax-free. And so in that year, you can convert, a part or all of a traditional IRA to a Roth. And sure, you pay the tax in that year, but that's kind of the point. If your tax rate's really low, it might be good to go ahead and pay the tax that year. And then anything in that account comes out completely tax-free, and any growth in that account. So that's kind of a cool planning opportunity there.
Great. And that's a really important one. The other thing with the Roth is if there's funds left in it, when it goes to your beneficiaries, it's also tax-free, unlike your traditional IRA. So that can be a nice planning opportunity from both sides, from a tax planning and an estate planning. Anything else that we should be thinking about as people kind of start to enter or think about entering retirement? Big financial things that we haven't talked about that we probably need to have on our radar?
Actually, on the flip side, we have talked about a lot of the financial things, and that's important is, the financial pictures is obviously really important. Can I financially support myself? But what am I going to do with myself in retirement? There's a really good book actually written by a financial advisor called How to Retire and Not Die. And it's about having a plan, a purpose, a passion for when you retire. And as important as it is to make sure you're financially secure, what am I going to do with the extra 40, 50, 60 hours that I have in my day and week? And really having something, it's probably daunting for some people, maybe super exciting for others, that, have all this time. What am I want to do with it? What am I going to do with it? And really having, a solid idea. I think most of us can't just sit on the beach drinking, margaritas all day. It might be nice for a few weeks or a month or a year, but what are we going to do with our, brains that were typically very stimulated mentally or engaged, and how are we going to stay, engaged in our lives going forward? So that's definitely something to be thinking about in conjunction. And I'm sure on the, what else to be thinking about in retirement, on the estate planning side, legally, Heather, I'm sure you have some input there too.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that idea of thinking about, okay, now I'm not working anymore. What am I going to do with my time? So I know I have a lot of clients that like to say, oh my gosh, I'm so busy now in retirement. I don't know how I got anything done before. And I love hearing that. I think that's like perfect retirement. So we are going to wrap up. That went really quick this morning, Megan. Thank you so much for joining me.
Of course.
And for our audience, if you have questions about financial planning, you're looking for a wonderful wealth advisor, I would absolutely encourage you to reach out to Megan. And for all things estate planning and elder law, please remember us and reach out to the Chubb Law Firm. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Heather.